Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is the first official Daily Palantir episode of 2024. We are here. It is 2024, January 1st, and we haven't posted a Daily Palantir episode since, I think, like December 21st. It's been a while. Been about 10 days. I took the last year of the week off, not because I wanted to take off, quite frankly. I had 100-degree fever for a good 4 to 5 days, and it was just like not easing up at all. Now I'm better, a lot recovered. The thing about with the fever is once you have the fever, you go through stages, and like the last 2 days of the fever was gone, but then you're just sneezing like 17,000 times, and you have runny nose, stuffy nose, your head is in so much pain because you have all the mucus stuck up there. So I basically decided, you know what, let's just wait until we get into the new year to start fresh again. I want to talk about my 2024 Palantir expectations in this video. We haven't made an episode in a while. There's a lot of news we have to catch up on, and we will be catching up on that news over the coming days. Today's Monday, January 1st. Unfortunately, markets were closed, and I wish markets weren't closed. But tomorrow, January 2nd, we'll get started with the entire new year in regards to the stock market and do what we need to do. Palantir had a pretty phenomenal 2023. And what I want to do on this episode of Daily Palantir is really a recap of what happened in 2023. All of the major highlights, all the good things that happened, and things that really as shareholders we should be very proud that they ended up happening. And then I want to talk about 3 big expectations I have from my personal perception and expectations of what 2024 can become for Palantir if they're able to execute. And if they can, you know, maybe shareholders have another good year following 2023. So let's get into it. Thank you all for being here. I hope you guys had a Merry Christmas, a Happy Holidays. We are into the new year, 2024. It's time to get to work. Let's talk about what happened last year, and let's get into the new year for Palantir. Okay, so let's get into how Palantir ended their 2023. They were up about 160% to end the year. Not bad at all for shareholders in terms of return. And I tweeted this a couple days ago. The amount of doubters about the company at the beginning of the year was at an all-time high as the stock hit $6. This was back in January of 2023. Since then, we have had 4 quarters of consecutive GAAP profitability, now allowing us to be eligible for the S&P 500 going into 2024. We introduced our artificial intelligence platform, which is going to potentially be one of the mainstream AI platforms that exists for enterprises over the next decade to operationalize large language models becoming a real thing in 2023. This is Palantir's take on it. A $480 million NHS deal, which the implications of it are less monetarily, more about the actual fact that we are controlling an entire country's healthcare system. It cannot be understated how important that deal will be over the next couple of years as Palantir is able to hopefully show results and then open up new potential avenues to get different deals. U.S. commercial growth of 30%, 2 AIP conferences, revenue per employee doubled. That wasn't in 1 year, but in 2019, it was around 300,000. 2023, it's about 600,000. So over the past 4 years, we got to the point where revenue per employee is doubling, just meaning that the output efficiency per employee is strong. One thing I didn't put here is that stock-based compensation normalized to about 22% of revenues, which is completely in line with other SaaS companies and will likely, hopefully, be going down further going into 2024. And institutional holdings are now at their highest level for Palantir. Look, I think 2023 was a good year. I think unequivocally it's hard to say that 2023 was a bad year. 2022 sucked because the entire market sucked, and Palantir was susceptible to every other company in a high interest rate environment, going from a 0 interest rate environment to get their asses handed to them, quite frankly. And that's what ended up happening to us as shareholders and the company themselves. Nonetheless, I think the year of 2023 was how can Palantir in a high interest rate environment and with a product offering that is not really defined in terms of its go-to-market still be successful? And I think, you know, in the beginning of the year, management basically said, what if we just go for profitability? What if we go for GAAP profits? Remember, Q4 2022 is when Palantir became profitable. Q3 2022 is when they said on the earnings call that they wouldn't be profitable until 2025. And even I, as like a very big bull, was like, dude, that's a little ridiculous. You're going to wait 5 years to become profitable from going public. And then, you know, we got that nice surprise of profitability in Q4 2022. And then the question was, can they keep it up? And they kept it up for the second quarter, and that's when we were like, oh, so this is what these guys are doing. They're not going for 30% growth this year because it's just hard to get that much growth. A, when you don't have a product that's clearly defined in terms of its go-to-market. B, when interest rates are high and not every company is willing to just dish out millions of dollars on software. Like, you're just not going to be able to get that level of explosive growth in the way that Palantir would like to get that type of growth. They, you know, other companies have been able to get that growth, but even you look at a Snowflake that's growing at 30% plus per year, their growth is declining from 70, 80% a couple of years ago. So it's not like, you know, growth is just that easy to come around, but it is a question for investors, which is that if you don't have the growth, why should we invest? And Palantir made it a very, easy reason to stay invested, which is like, well, we're going to do the fiscally responsible thing and we're going to clean up our balance sheet. Now, they've had a really nice balance sheet, right? No, a lot of $3 billion cash, no debt. But the one thing on that balance sheet that everyone hated to see was that they are not profitable. They've been around for 20 years and it's like, hey, can you get profitable? And so even Karp, you know, he was really happy on that Q4 2022 earnings call to just be like, you can't say we're not profitable anymore because we are profitable. And they kept that going. So I think the big goal of 2023 was, can they keep investor confidence high? Because investor confidence was tough. I mean, it was at all-time lows going into 2023. Unless you really understood Palantir, unless you were making a video about them every day, you didn't really understand what the potential of this little software company that's been around for 20 years was. You couldn't have imagined it was going to go up 160%. So going into the beginning of the year, investor confidence was at an all-time low. And the way to restore investor confidence is either you get growth or you get profitable. And I think they focused on profitability, and it was the right thing to focus on, because they definitely weren't going to get the growth figured out yet. I think they will get that figured out, but it wasn't going to happen in 2023. And so if you couldn't figure out the growth in 2023, well, if you could figure out the profitability and you can now be eligible to be part of the S&P 500, we already know how important of a company you are. We already know how strong of a company you can be just based on the pure potential. If you cleaned up all of these little idiosyncrasies like becoming profitable, then when the growth comes and now you're profitably growing and your operating income is starting to get better as well, you have a much better shot of being a generational company. And really, that's what Palantir focused on in 2023. Now, the other big thing in 2023, I think, was the introduction of AIP. At the end of the day, AIP is going to be a platform that can most likely get Palantir to the next echelon of growth, which is primarily not even just because of Palantir, but because of where the market's going. The reason Palantir stock did really well this year and why it got to 21.85 at the highs is because the market wants exposure to AI. AI is real. I've personally concluded from all the research I've done this entire year that AI is a thing. It is going to continue to be a thing. And if AI is real, and if large language models are going to be implemented not just through chatbots, but through the entire enterprise as a new form of compute, then you need some type of platform that can connect the information that is generating the contextual nature for the LLM to be valuable. And you also need the output from the LLM to actually give you the results that you need to do. And that's what AIP is. Palantir's bootcamp strategy and their go-to-market approach on making AIP a real thing, I think, was the other part of 2023 that was incredibly important. If they did not figure out and define how they could go to market, which by the end of the year, it seems like they've done about 500 of these boot camps and they've converted, we don't have the right number or any number yet, but they've converted a decent amount of participants at these boot camps just from the qualitative feedback we're seeing on participants and what they say on LinkedIn and how valuable it is to them. And it just seems like they developed a product that is a product that is theoretically supposed to sell itself because of how good it is. And they've come up with a sales structure that is not, you know, taking you out to dinner and talking with the C-suite, but saying, hey, send your best engineers, give us 8 hours. We're going to convince them that this is a product they should try to check out. And if they want to check it out, they can have it for the next couple months for free. And then after they get it, you know, and they use it, they're probably going to want to convert. And the time to value in terms of conversion on those sales is likely higher. Remember in Q3 2023 on the earnings call, Sham said that they had closed one of the largest home construction companies from pilot to $40 million total contract value within 90 days, where, you know, those types of contracts used to take months and months and months to be able to secure. So I think that in 2023, not only did they get profitable, not only did they introduce the new platform that was going to likely accelerate growth for the next decade in regards to what their spin was going to be on AI, even though they've been working on AI for the past 20 years, but they also figured out a defined go-to-market strategy that doesn't seem constrained by dollars, but seems constrained by talent, which is a great problem to have, because if they can figure that out, then that go-to-market strategy can inevitably scale. We've seen companies like Snowflake and Databricks try to copy that go-to-market strategy. We've talked about it on the show in terms of now they're doing boot camps. It seems inevitable that if a product is so based on the end user experience, and Palantir is a product-focused company, never has been a sales-focused company, if they can create a go-to-market strategy that is focused on getting the product to be in the hands of the users that are going to be using the product, maybe the product can start selling itself via that go-to-market, and maybe that is what opens up the floodgates for 2024 to be massive for Palantir. So that's what they did in 2023, and I think all shareholders have been pretty happy with what they've done, and you've had plenty of time to DCA, and hopefully you have a decent average at this point. I don't know what the stock is going to do in the future. Maybe it tanks back to 10, maybe it goes all the way to 30, no clue. But 2023 was an objectively good year for Palantir, and now it's just a question of what they can do going into 2024. So that begs the question, what do we expect from Palantir going into 2024? I have 3 basic things, and then you guys can put in the comments what you also want to see from Palantir going into 2024. But here are my 3 things, and then we'll talk about them. Number 1 is increased customer count. Number 2 is increased top-line revenue growth. And number 3 is international government deals, hopefully getting more expansive ones in 2024. Okay, so let's break it down. Increased customer count. I think this is the gateway and the framework, basically the internal link to get to all the other things I want. I think higher increased customer count means we're going to have better increased revenue growth, right? More customers, they're paying more, we're likely going to be able to grow as well. Higher increased customer count means we're going to have better R&D with being able to figure out, is AIP working? Which customers are using AIP? Can we penetrate smaller businesses that are using it, or only the big guys using it, etc.? There's so many benefits to just being able to have more and more data on the customers that are using the product. I mean, think of it like YouTube, right? YouTube gets more users. They get more activity on the platform. They know what's working, what's not working. They can test different features and split test in different countries, different things that'll work and different things that won't work. And they just are able to build a better product at the end of the day because they have more usage of their product. So from that perspective, right now we have 453 customers. We've been growing customer count at 8% for the past 2 consecutive quarters, which is breaking a declining customer growth rate. It went from like 12% to 11% to 9% to bottomed at about 7% 3 quarters ago, and now it's back up to 8% for the past 2 quarters. If we can grow customer count at about 10% and then 11%, 12%, 13%, that's what I kind of mean over the next 4 or 5 quarters, and have that go consecutively higher. And I think that's being conservative, but like I would rather be conservative here than say we're going to grow customer count 20, 30% every quarter. I know some people have those expectations. That could happen if the boot camps really start scaling and working, but I would rather be conservative here. If we can just get to like 10% customer growth per quarter here and there, give it a percent, and it starts getting a little higher, I think that's going to open up a lot of opportunities. The problem is right now, our customer count at 453 is just not as big as we need it to be able to generate all the data and ultimately generate the demand that we're looking to see what the true potential is of AIP. I think when you get to something like 1,200 customers, which would be amazing, I think if we can go from 453 to 1,200 by the end of 2024, that would be a big deal. I think that's super ambitious. Some people think we can get to 2,000. Some people think we're not even going to hit 1,000. We'll see what ends up happening. But if we can actually penetrate customer count growth, whether it's small businesses, whether it's $1 million deal, a $100,000 deal, or a $50 million deal, we need more customers using this product. That customer count is also going to implement the developers that start using Palantir, because as you have more customers, you have to have more developers working with the product. You have to have more people in IT knowing about Palantir, and it expands the developer community much stronger. This is what Coach Rep has been talking about a lot on the channel, to be able to get more people to care and understand what Palantir is in the first place. It starts with customer count. Whether it's a small customer, big customer, that is going to increase revenue growth in the future. That's going to get more developers excited. That's going to get more people knowing about what Palantir is. It's going to get a lot of international exposure for Palantir if we're able to expand. We need more customers at the end of the day. And that, to me, if we get a stock that dips over the next couple quarters, but that customer count is growing up, that is the buy signal to me, because that means inevitably that monetization is coming in the future. Okay, number 2, increased revenue growth. I know this sounds like a basic thing that we want. Like, yeah, every shareholder wants their company to grow revenue. But the problem with Palantir is that we are growing top-line revenue at below 20% right now. For a high-growth tech company that's trading at a 16, 17 times price to sales, something that conventional analysts would call Palantir overvalued, and not just like, oh, well, every big tech company is overvalued, but like, no, actually, like, they are just legitimately not growing to be able to keep up this type of valuation, right? Like, if we don't have a quarter or a string of quarters, and I'm willing to give them till the end of 2024 and really not even worry about it till 2025 for this to materialize, but if we don't get back to that 25, 30% range, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough for the street to justify the multiple, because you got to remember in 2023, everything kind of melted up as interest rates were starting to come down in terms of like the perception of what the Fed did, especially at the end of December with the pivot, AI, the hype, the narrative. The expectation now is that AI is going to be a big thing. 2024, I think, is the year of execution. It's not the year of Facebook being able to cut 15,000 employees and their stock, doubles because they cut employees, because obviously your EPS is going to go higher if you have less costs on the books. But now Facebook has to show like, no, like we can actually grow our revenue and we don't need to just cut costs to be able to make the stock perform better. I think the same thing is going to be with Palantir. They actually have to show the top line revenue growth to get industry analysts and Wall Street really excited about the fact that this is a high growth tech company. There will be a trillion other reasons why Wall Street won't like to invest in Palantir, even if they have the good growth rates. But right now, the biggest reason they're not investing is because the growth has just been abysmal when it comes to Palantir, which is why they focused on profitability, as I said, which I think was the right move. But if you're going to focus on profitability one year, you got to now profitably grow the next year. And if you can't get to at least 20 to 25% by the end of the year, it's going to be very tough maintaining this multiple. Like, it's not even, interest rates could go to zero, and yeah, some money could inflate the stock, but that's not real at the end of the day. Like, you need to, I would rather have it grow naturally and slowly in the right way as the growth rates get higher, and then that money really starts piling in, because then there's a reason for that money to pile in. It's not just being speculated on like it was back in 2021 when it jumped to $45, but it has a decent floor for the justification for the valuation. And then whatever premium you give on top of that, you can argue that till the end of time, but at least you can't argue the fact that Palantir is not growing as a company. Right now, the growth is just not there. So if that growth comes back, I think that's going to be really good for 2024. Final thing I want to see is international government deals. The NHS contract was a big deal. I've covered it extensively on the channel. I think it's one of the most important things that Palantir was able to get done. I want to see more increased government deals. And like, obviously, we've done a lot of videos on the channel talking about what the potential is for the U.S. government that just approved $886 billion of defense funding, and what that could be in terms of allocation to software companies. You know, less than 1% of that is going to go to software. If even a couple of percentage points over the next 5-6 years goes to software, Palantir's in the running to win a lot of those contracts. That is good. That is important, and we need to be able to do that. I have faith that Palantir is going to be able to continue to maintain that. We're going to do like 1.2 billion TTM just from the government business at the end of 2023. But international government growth is something that hasn't really been there outside of the NHS contract and a couple of things here and there that we've been working on with like Lithuania and like, but real hardcore, whether it's healthcare contracts, energy contracts, or defense contracts across the entire world, hasn't happened as much as we need it to happen, even though Palantir's presence has grown and the world has become more geopolitically not safe, right? I mean, you know, politics has Germany banning Palantir, right? They don't want to use Palantir, or France wants to build their own version of Palantir. And we know that's not going to happen. Like, that's just, and they're going to waste a lot of money trying to make that happen. So the question I have in 2024 is, can Palantir overcome those political challenges like they did with the NHS, and they went through hell to do it, but they did it? Can they do that going into 2024 and land some major deals, whether it's defense, healthcare, whatever it may be, with a Sweden, you know, with a Romania, with a Lithuania, with a Poland, with a Japan? Like, can they actually land harder deals that make it almost impossible for them to be disintegrated into that government ecosystem, and do what they did in the NHS, which is like, hey, here's a contract for £1, and then for 2 years later, you get $480 million. If they could do that with all the countries in NATO and all the different democracies that are trying to understand what is this new world order that we're entering into, where China and Russia are just trying to do whatever the hell they want, I think that would be massive growth for Palantir in terms of top line revenue, and give another reason for investors to really look at this company seriously. Because if Palantir is integrated into every major democracy's government, and they're integrated in a meaningful way. Remember, Palantir has a contract with the United Kingdom's Ministry of Defense and their NHS. So they're working with them from the defense perspective and from the healthcare perspective. And you can just imagine that expanding more and more and more into the future. If they can get that with a lot of other countries in Europe, with a lot of other countries across the world in Asia, and not just be reliant on the US to fuel their government growth, which is where the majority of the government revenue is coming from, is the United States. I think that will diversify the revenue streams much more appropriately, and give us the potential to get better deals like an NHS contract going into the future. Because all these countries are trying to modernize, all of them are trying to implement AI, all of them are trying to actually up their country's defense spending. And I think Palantir can capture a lot of that market. So those are the real three things I want to see. Increased customer growth, very important. Increased revenue growth, top line. I know that's a basic one, but we really need to get that part under control, or else the street's going to have a very hard time justifying the multiple. And then finally, better international government deals. That's the thing that I would want to see. Let me know in the comments what you would want to see in 2024. Let's make it easy. What are the top 3 things you care about as a shareholder seeing? And put it below in the comments. All right, everybody, that is it for me. First episode of 2024 in the books. Daily Palantir. Thank you all for being here. Again, sorry I couldn't come back last week. Just was a little bit too sick, but we are back. Time to put our heads down. Got excited stuff planned for the channel. I think you guys are going to enjoy some of the things I'm coming out with this year for 2024. And I'm super excited to be along for this journey and keep doing our thing. Thank you, everybody. Have a great one. Hope you guys enjoyed your holidays. And let's get back to work. See you tomorrow.